Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you. Hi everybody, my name's Johnnie and I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad to be here tonight, glad to be sober. I'd like to thank Mike for inviting me over here to share my experience, strength, and hope, to see some old friends and meet some new friends, and just basically get another day of sobriety. And that's really what the hell it's all about, you know, just one day at a time. In my life, I haven't had a drink of alcohol or a mood-altering chemical in my system since the 4th day of November, 1959. And I hope I always stay as excited about Alcoholics Anonymous as I have been for all these years. 34 years ago, on the 4th day of this month, they opened the door of a penitentiary and let me out for what I hope is my last time. And I was so excited about going to Alcoholics Anonymous because I had been sitting in a penitentiary for 19 months with watching the people come to Alcoholics Anonymous on Sundays and live with a dream that one day you would allow me to come and sit in your meetings with you. I've always considered it some type of a privilege to be allowed to come and sit in these meetings. I don't ever want to get some type of an egotistical idea in my head that I have some type of right to be here just because I don't drink alcohol anymore. I hope I never get to the point where I go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and I don't pay any attention to the meetings. I hope I never get to the point where anything in Alcoholics Anonymous is too unimportant for me to come in and be a part of it. I don't understand why anybody in their right mind would ever go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and not want to be a part of the meeting. I don't understand that, but I don't have to understand that, because I learned a long, long time ago in my life that this thing is a matter of life and death, and it's my life. It's not your life. If I drink, it won't bother any of you. But by the same token, if you drink, it won't bother me either, because I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous to get sober. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous to stay sober for over 35 and a half years. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous for anything. I don't even take any credit for coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. If I'd have known where I was coming, I wouldn't even have come. I was an alcoholic. I didn't know what one was, and if you'd have called me one, I'd have hit you. I came to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous because the institution I was in allowed women to come in there. I came to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous over 35 years ago to smell perfume. And I've been honking and sniffing around there ever since. And, so it really doesn't make any difference why you come. There's a new person here tonight, and I just hope that you sit around here long enough to discover what's wrong with you. Because the greatest blessing of my life is that I was sitting in a penitentiary and I had no place else to go, sitting in these meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous long enough to discover what was wrong with me. Because I never knew. I never knew until the moment that I knew what was wrong with me. Now, I don't know whether I was born alcoholic or not. It's totally immaterial to me. I was born needing an answer. But I didn't know what the problem was. It's kind of hard to find an answer to a problem if you don't know what the problem is. I didn't know. I'm restless and I'm irritable and I'm discontent and I'm angry and I'm hostile and I'm bitter, but I don't know that's a symptom of the most deadly disease that's ever been known to man, a thing called alcoholism. How would I know that? I hadn't been here. I hadn't sat in here. I hadn't investigated this program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I know a lot about whiskey because everybody in my family drank whiskey. That doesn't make me alcoholic, and it doesn't make them alcoholic because they drank whiskey. There's a lot of people who drink whiskey who are not alcoholic. A lot of people drink a lot of whiskey and not alcoholic. The book Alcoholics Anonymous says that there's a difference between an alcoholic of my type and a heavy drinker. Heavy drinkers can quit drinking given any type of reasonable excuse. You know, like falling in love. That's a good excuse to drink, for Christ's sake, if you're alcoholic, I'll tell you that. I used to live in this house. My mother drank whiskey, but she'd beat up my dad. My dad drank whiskey, and he'd beat up my mother. They'd both drink whiskey and beat me up. I saw what whiskey did to people, and I didn't say, I don't like you. I'm just not going to drink whiskey. I had uncles who drank whiskey and went to penitentiaries. I had aunts who drank whiskey and worked in houses on the other side of the tracks. Everybody drank whiskey. And I didn't see it, so I'm looking for a way out of this thing, and whiskey ain't my answer. I haven't taken a drink, but I say I'm never going to drink. I'm not going to be like these people. See, another symptom of this deadly disease called alcoholism is you don't understand. My case is different. That's the way I live my life. And if you're new here in Alcoholics Anonymous, or you're not new, or you're hanging around here, I pray God one thing for you, that you can eliminate your differences and just come down off your high horse and be just like all the rest of us. I pray God that. Because I'm going to tell you, anything to get an alcoholic drunk in this thing is a thing called, you don't understand, my case is different. So I started looking for a way out of this deal. I looked up one day, saw my grandmother. Now, my grandmother lived till she was almost 90 years old. She never took a drink of alcohol or smoked a cigarette in her life. My grandmother wouldn't think it's a big deal. I've been sober 35 and a half years. She'd say, I ain't had a drink for 90. I don't know about you, but just 3 or 4 times Granny should have took a drink. I mean, she drove up there a little from time to time. But my grandmother used to get up on Sunday morning and take off and go somewhere, be gone a couple hours, come back, something happened to her. I didn't know what it was or where she went, but she's different. She was a little lighter on her step, a little easier on her being, and she danced over these crazy people and sang songs to Jesus. I took a look at that. Then there was my grandfather. He used to take off on Tuesdays or Mondays or something, and he'd come back the following week sometimes, maybe a month later, and they'd bring him back in all various shapes and forms. One time they brought him back on a wagon. He'd been shot and stabbed and thrown off the second-floor balcony of a whorehouse in Kansas City. I took a look at that and filed that in my keen alcoholic mind. Now, for you who are new here in Alcoholics Anonymous, this is probably the only place in the world you're ever going to hear about the keen alcoholic mind. Non-alcoholics don't talk about the keen alcoholic mind. They just don't. You ain't never been to an Al-Anon meeting in your life or heard one of them Al-Anon speakers talk about the keen alcoholic mind. They get up and say things like the keen alcoholic got up last night and peed in the linen closet, but they don't talk about the keen alcoholic mind. We talk about it all the time. You ask us anything, we'll give you an answer for it. If I was that much smarter, I'd be dead now. Thank God. Alcohol just kicked my brains out. Made it simple enough for me to grasp this little simple program called Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to church with my grandmother when I was a child looking for the answer to this dilemma of mine. I thought Grandma's got the best deal. All I'd have to do is go with Grandma and sit with Grandma and be like Grandma. I'd be like Grandma. I'm not like my grandmother. My grandmother's not alcoholic. I didn't know that. I didn't know that I was bodily and mentally different. That was read here tonight in our 3rd chapter of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I had no idea that. I had no idea the delusion that I was going to be like other people, or presently maybe, had to be smashed. I didn't know that either. I didn't know anything. I expected something to happen to me sitting in church like it was happening to my grandmother. But it didn't happen to me. I just sat there and felt guiltier and more different and more apart from and more angry. God, I was angry. Because I'm trying not to be like these people, and I can't be, and that made me mad. I wasn't blaming anybody for it. I don't ever remember saying it's their fault. I was just angry and hostile because I knew I was different. And I didn't know who was responsible, and it didn't make a fiddler's damn to me who was responsible for me being different. I had always felt different. It had nothing to do with my parents. It had nothing to do with the environment that I was born in, because my older brother's not an alcoholic. He's weird, but he's not an alcoholic. He takes 2 drinks and quits. If you ask him why he's starting to quit, he'd say, I'm starting to feel it. I thought that's when you stuck it into overdrive. I didn't know that's when you knocked it off. I didn't understand that kind of stuff. But see, my brother's not alcoholic. He's not physically like me, and he's not mentally and emotionally like me. My brother's a real strange person. I don't understand that either. So it can't be from anything that I came from, because he came out of the same cesspool that I came out of. My old brother never went to jail in his life unless he come to visit me. I thought that was kind of strange. I sit on the back porch of my grandpa's house one day and took a drink of alcohol. I took a drink of whiskey, my grandpa's whiskey, out of a fruit jar. That's all I did. I did something I said I'd never do. The next couple of minutes of my life is what makes me alcoholic. You see, I'm not alcoholic because I spent the next 20 years of my life creating mayhem out there in the world. And I'm not an alcoholic because I spent most of my life stepping on people and pushing them out of the way before I got here. I'm an alcoholic for a very simple reason. I have some type of an abnormal reaction to alcohol. Now, I damn near died finding that out. I didn't know that everybody who drank whiskey doesn't have that reaction to it. I didn't know that only happens to people like me, alcoholics of my type. I thought that everybody had it. Alcohol has the uncanny ability to calm the screaming madness that's way down deep inside my soul. Takes me from the black pit of nothingness, stands me into the gray fringe of the business of living. It installs in me some type of arrogance that says, damn you world, it's all right. I'm not good enough to be around the good people, but I'm too good to be around the bad people. It's okay right here. That's what alcohol did for me. And if it still did that, I'd still drink it. But somewhere along in that lottery of life, it just quit being the magic thing that it was. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work. I know that it works. I know what takes the big hurt away from me. Alcohol is one of the best friends I ever had. Alcohol is the reason I'm standing here alive and well. Alcohol is the reason I walked into that meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous 35 and a half years ago. If I hadn't taken a drink of alcohol, I'd have blown my brains out. I know that as well as I'm standing here. Alcoholics like me commit suicide cold sober. I didn't know that either. But that's not what drove me into the gates of insanity and death and beyond. What got me was the thing that kicked right in behind that that's limited to alcoholics of my type. It's called the phenomenon of craving. Once I take a drink of alcohol, I can't quit drinking. I didn't know that. Once I take a drink of alcohol, I'm doomed to take the next one. And I'm drinking to overcome a craving that's beyond all human understanding and all human knowledge and all human care. If I took a drink of alcohol tonight, all the goodness and the goodness that went into my life for the last 35 years, no matter how much I believe in God or how much I think God is watching over me, if I took a drink of alcohol tonight, it would be absolutely and totally powerless for me to not take the next drink. And that's after 35 and a half years without nothing. I didn't know that. What happened to me the next 20 years of my life, every time I drank happened to me. I took a drink of alcohol, and 3 days later I was pulled out from underneath a bridge and stood in front of a judge and sent to the Hutchinson State Reform School. 20 years later I took a drink of alcohol. They pulled me out of a car in Compton and stood me in front of a judge and sentenced me to 20 years in the penitentiary. That's what happened to me when I drank. I got drunk and went places. I just traveled around out there. I just went from reform school to junior penitentiaries to nut houses. Now they call them treatment centers. I like nut house better. It's a little more macho. Really, I think if you're going to be bad, you ought to be bad, for Christ's sake. Don't quit drinking because you puke a little. Hang in there. Give it everything you got. Hell, you got to work at being an alcoholic. Anybody can be an addict. It doesn't take much at all, just a needle and some dope. Everybody can't be out. You got to hang in there to be alcoholic. You got to puke a little, wet your pants, throw up a lot. You got to really work at it real good. I did. I took everything I had and threw it into the battle, lost the battle. And to make things even worse, I didn't even know I was in a fight. It's amazing to me. I just never knew. I never knew it was the first drink. I never knew it at all. When I'm in a... Wait till I get into recovery. That'll send you down the road running, for Christ's sake. I never knew that. I never knew it when I came walking into my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And a lot of people don't know it today. I never knew anything. When I'm in the reform school, I have an opportunity to go to the University of California at Los Angeles to play baseball. All I have to do is come out of that reform school and go out and play baseball. And that's all I ever wanted to do in my life was play baseball. I love baseball. I was a great baseball player. I could throw a ball through a wall. I could hit a BB. I could do most anything with a baseball, but stand up and make it sing the Star Spangled Banner. I could have been a baseball. But I come walking out of that reform school and took a drink. That's all. I just took a drink. I just wanted to go, you know. That's what alcoholics do, you know. They don't want to get drunk. Alcoholics of my type don't want to get drunk because I don't want to lose control. I just want to go, I just want to take the edge off a little bit. See? I don't want to just go out somewhere. I just want to take a drink. But then once I take the drink, I'm powerless not to take the next one, and the next one, and the next one. There's no Chinese proverb that explains that better than anything that I've ever known. I take a drink, then the drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes me. And that's the way I live my life. I'm sitting on a furlough from Reform School, 10 or 11 years old, drinking a bottle of Marca Petri red wine, which was my drink. See, I started on wine and worked down. I'll tell you never heard of Marca Petri red wine either because it was experimental at stages of Thunderbird. That's why you never heard of it. That's just bad. That stuff never saw a grape. I'll tell you that. It was bad news. But anyhow, I'm drinking this stuff and it ain't doing what I wanted to do. And a guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, you ought to try these. And he gave me some pills. Now, I don't remember saying to him, what are those? Will they bother me if I take them? I just took them. Thank God they weren't X-Lax. That's all I can tell you. We probably have a new 12-step program called Laxatives Anonymous, I suppose. I could be standing here tonight as the adult child of a laxative taker. I would have been functional, but mother sat on the toilet all the time when I was little. Why your stuff stupider than that around here? Makes sense to me. Work. Because sitting on that same street corner on a furlough from another reform school a couple of years later, I'm drinking this wine and I'm eating these pills and they ain't working. The guy stuck a needle in my arm. And for the next 14 years of my life, I stuck needles in my arm and I ran in and out of institutions. That's what I do. See, I live out in the streets and I do what people like me who live in the streets do. I destroy everything that comes in contact with me. There's a reason for that. I'm a taker. I'm a taker of things and I'm a user of people. That makes me a loser. I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, and I'm self-serving, and I got an ego bigger than this whole room. My entire lifetime was spent before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, for a long time after I was here, and probably a lot of the time today, I don't have any idea of knowing, without a conscious thought or a conscious concern for any other human being who lives upon the face of this earth. I wasn't interested in you at all, unless you had something I wanted. Then when I got whatever it was that you had that I wanted, I cast your light around like so much trash and I went on about my business. That's the way I live my life. I never told anybody that I loved. My inventories told me when after I got sober, I never one time in my life ever told anybody that I loved them. Love was not in my vocabulary. Love to me denoted some type of weakness. If I told you I loved you, you were going to be able to use me. Takers don't love anyhow. Takers take, and users use, but they don't love. Love requires some act of unselfishness, and I never had that. I never remember one time in my life ever having an act of unselfishness before I got here, or for a long time after I was here. It scared me to death when I had my first thought of unselfishness. You know what my first thought of unselfishness was? I got my sponsor a cup of coffee. And I was embarrassed when somebody said, what are you doing that for? Oh, I'm a sponsor. I wouldn't get nobody no cup of coffee. It'd be a cold day in hell before I get anybody a cup of coffee and carry it to them. It must be a cold day in hell now because that guy ain't around here no more. Because he never has created some type of act of unselfishness. I didn't know that. If you live the way I live for any period of time, maybe what will happen to me will happen to you. I pray God it never does. But I came to in a cell in solitary confinement at a maximum security penitentiary a little over 37 years ago, crawling around on a concrete floor, drifting in and out of total insanity. And what's significant about that to me is that there wasn't a single solitary soul left upon the face of this earth that would send me a penny postcard. They were all gone. But they should be gone. I didn't have any right to have them back. I didn't have any right to have anything back. And just because I was lucky enough to stumble into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous in November 1959.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
Don't give me a right for anything just because I was lucky enough to stumble in here and sit down in your room and buy your program. That's what comes stumbling into your meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous that day in November. A thing. I had no feelings. I cared about nothing. I am literally insane, clinically insane, by some of the leading psychiatrists in the state of California diagnosing. I had a piece of paper in my pocket that said I'd never be able to live outside of an institution without some type of medication in my system. God, if I could do it today, I'd be a walking poster boy for Prozac, I suppose, for Christ's sakes. I could just really be a go-getter out here, I'll tell you that. I came sitting in your meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know what was going on here. I had not a clue. I looked up on the backboard, I saw two brigades, and I thought I'd wandered into an anti-aircraft brigade. I didn't know what Alcoholics Anonymous was. Nobody had ever mentioned it to me. I said to the guy, I said, what is this? He said, it's Alcoholics Anonymous. I sunk down in my seat because gangsters weren't supposed to be hanging out with their winos. There been Gangsters Anonymous or Overhip Anonymous, or any kind of an anonymous, but I wasn't going to be an alcoholic. And I'll tell you what's frightening about that to me. Here I sit on the 4th day of November, 1959. I'm 28 years old. Everything in my life is completely and totally gone. I have taken me into the gates of insanity and death and beyond. I had no thoughts, no concept. I'm a walking time bomb waiting to explode on somebody. And I'm sitting in a room and I'm staring at the answer that I had sold my soul for. But I did not recognize the answer because I didn't know what the problem was. There I sit. And I sat in that meeting that day and waited for these women to get up and tell their racy stories, to be entertained, to have somebody to make fun of, I suppose. Maybe I came to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous to look for another group of people to hate. I don't know. It's some type of a God-given thing, I suppose, because it had nothing to do with me, because I didn't have any reason for coming to an AA meeting that day. These old gals got up to talk that day, and I remember when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, there weren't very many young, pretty girls in Alcoholics Anonymous. If they were, they weren't sitting up that penitentiary where I was at, I'll tell you that. These old gals got up to talk that day and said they'd drank for a long time. You could look at them and know they'd been somewhere for a long time. They said, I used to drink. I said, I'll bet you did. Bad stuff, too. See, I knew everything when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a walking encyclopedia of useless information. I know so damn much about what ain't true, I don't know what is true, and there I sit, dying and don't know I'm dying, dying slowly from the inside, rotting in the inside, and don't know what's wrong with me, staring at this answer, not recognizing what's going on, finding out all the differences that's going on there. I don't know, understand. I'm fascinated by these people. I don't understand these people. They're driving 185 miles on Sunday one way up those old back roads at their own expense, at their own gasoline, to spend 2 hours of their life talking to a room full of people who didn't want to listen to them. People like me who sit in the back road and made fun of them. I'll tell you how sick that is. I'm sitting in a penitentiary not knowing when I'm going home, making fun of people who are leaving in an hour. The keen alcoholic mind working again. I don't understand what's going on in AA. I really don't. I don't understand these people at all. I've never seen people like this before in my life. And the reason I didn't understand it is because for the first time in my life, I'm looking at givers. I'm not looking at takers. I've never seen anybody in my life who ever gave anything just for the hell of giving it. I never saw anybody in my life ever give anything without a hook. I don't know what's going on with these people. I ask them, what do you get out of coming up here anyhow? So when I could answer that question, I wouldn't have to ask it. Typical AA answers. You want something deep and meaningful that you can think about for a while. I don't know what's going on here. But I'll tell you what I've discovered since I've been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is not an opinion. This is a fact based on my experience of sitting in between 5 and 6 to 7 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous a week for all these years. You hear people talk about an invisible line in alcoholism, crossing over from invisible line from controlled to uncontrolled drinking. I don't know anything about that. I have no qualm with it whatsoever, but I've come to discover there's an invisible line in Alcoholics Anonymous. That alcoholics of my type must cross over or I'm a dead man. That's the line where I got to cross over from being a taker to being a giver. And if I don't cross that line, I'm dead. I'm alcoholic. The book Alcoholics Anonymous puts it in a very much more subtle way. It says selfishness and self-centeredness seems to be the root of my problems. I must be rid of it or it kills me. Must be. I wish I could tell you that it's gone all the time, but it never will be gone. That's why I got to go to a lot of meetings. That's why I have to do whatever I'm asked to do in Alcoholics Anonymous, even though I think it's really beneath my station to have to do things like that. I still have to do it. I don't know what's going on in meetings. I sit in these meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hear people get up at podiums like this and say, I used to drink, now I don't drink anymore, and everything is wonderful. So I guess I'm not alcoholic then. I'm not drinking either. I'm crazy. Wish I was alcoholic. If I could just be alcoholic, then all I have to do is not drink, and everything would be okay. They say get busy. I equated busy with being in motion. I thought the faster you move, the smaller target you made. That's the way it was in my neighborhood. So I moved quick. I picked up ashtrays and poured coffee, smiled at people. Went back there and set an inventory point and died. I'm doing what you told me to do, and I'm crazy. And my logical explanation to myself is this: I'm not alcoholic. If I was alcoholic, all I'd have to do is not drink and pick up these damned ashtrays, and I'd be like that guy. See, I'm as sober as the guy telling me that, physically sober. But I don't know that's the problem. What I've just described to myself is the disease of alcoholism. It's not drinking. It's not an alcohol problem. It's a thing called alcoholism. And it shows its set in the insanity that I do when I'm sober. I don't know that. They tell me every time I ask them, it's in the book. It's in the book, they'd say to me. I'd say, what's in the book? They'd say, oh, it's there. You go look for it, you'll find it. Now they are. They don't know, but they'll tell you it's there. Keep pointing at it. I found out if you want to hide anything from anybody today, put it in the book. Nobody looks there. I mean, why it has no significance. They paid a lot of money for somebody to tell them what's wrong with them. It wasn't my case. I went into the book Alcoholics Anonymous, a program of recovery called Alcoholics Anonymous, and a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. To prove to you I was different, it wouldn't work for me. And sitting in a room with a man doing what our program of recovery says is the fifth step, the greatest single event that ever happened to me that day, bar none. Coming to Alcoholics Anonymous and getting sober is not the greatest single event that ever happened to me. Being sober all these years is not the greatest single event that's ever happened to me. My children being born and my grandchildren being born and the good life I live today is not the most single event that's ever happened to me in my life. The greatest single event that ever happened to me that day sitting in that room when I heard myself say to that man that I was alcoholic. From way down deep inside of me there came a freedom that I carry to this very instant. I know what's wrong with me. I never knew before that moment. I'm an alcoholic and I suffer from a disease called alcoholism. I'm not an alcoholic and anything. When I was an alcoholic and something or other, I couldn't have your program. I separated me from you. I wasn't like you. I was better than you, worse than you, smarter than you, hipper than you, slicker than you, but not like you. When I became just like you, alcoholic, I have to practice the only program of recovery for alcoholics of my type in 4,000 years of recorded history. This is the only thing that's ever worked for people like me. I have to do it. And I have to do it because it's a matter of life and death, and it's my life. I've come to discover that. I can't drink and live, and of myself I can't keep from drinking. Can't keep from drinking. Then how come I'm sober? I know what's wrong with me. I discovered the nature of my problem, and thank God I had time to investigate the solution for the nature of my problem. It's a program called Alcoholics Anonymous, and my actions therein. And while confined to that institution for the next year of my life, I completed the first 9 steps of our program of recovery. So when I walked out of the penitentiary on the 4th day of June, 1961, I came out to a world I didn't know anything about. Not a thing. I didn't have a Social Security card. I was 30 years old. I'd never worked a day in my life. I stole everything I needed. Or I beat somebody out of it, or had somebody give it to me. I had nothing going for me whatsoever, except this program called Alcoholics Anonymous. I had lived with this dream that you would let me come and sit with you. And the day I walked out of that penitentiary, there was an old man from Alcoholics Anonymous there to pick me up and put me in a car and take me home. I went home to see my mother. She fell off the steps blind drunk. I picked her up and put her on the couch and said, "Mom, I'm going to an AA meeting." She said, "Fine, I think you should." I'd like to be able to stand here and tell you that my mother got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous and got sober. My mother died 2 years ago and never did get sober. Oh, she would quit drinking from time to time because she could no longer drink. Alcoholics of my type, and alcoholics like my mother, I suppose, drink until they can no longer stand drinking. Then she'd come and sit in your meetings until she could no longer stand to sit here. Then she'd go drink again. And she went through that little exercise of futility for 30 years. And I watched it. I had a ringside seat, watching the futility of people who think they have a drinking problem, and all they got to do is come put their butt in some seat in these meetings. And what happens if you just have a drinking problem and you come and put your seat in these meetings, sooner or later your butt's going to get sick and tired of sitting in that seat, and you find other things more important to do than to participate in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a ringside seat watching other things become more important to people all the time than the thing that made it possible for them to have anything to begin with. See, one of the ideas that's never left my head, I have never, ever, for one single day, ever forgot who wanted me when nobody else did. I never have forgot that. Oh, they all came back after I started standing up upright and looking bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Everybody wants you then. But I never forgot them people of Alcoholics Anonymous who came in that penitentiary and rocked me to sleep and gave me this program by giving of their time. See, I owe them. I owe all the people who went before me, who kept the program of Alcoholics Anonymous go. I owe them in such a way that I do what I'm asked to do in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've had a sponsor from my first day. My sponsor was a guy named Norm Alpe. Norm Alpe told me, "Johnny, I'm your sponsor." I told him, "Fine. What's that?" He said, "Well, I'm going to help you through life." I said, "Well, then what do you want me to do?" And he said, "Why do you ask me?" I said, "For Christ's sakes, man, you just told me you were my sponsor." He said, "If I can't run my life, what makes you think I can run yours?" I said, "Then what do you want me to do?" He says, "You do what I do." I said, "Just what is it you do, Norm?" He said, "If you do what I do, then you'll know what I do." Oh, they tell you great information around here. I think that is the most misunderstood statement by these half-assed people in Alcoholics Anonymous that I know of. When you mention to some of these people who have God for their sponsor, they think, I'm not going to have anybody tell me what to do. Sponsors don't tell people what to do. Sponsors show people what to do. But when my sponsor told me if I did what he did, then I had to find out what he did. That means I had to spend time with him. I had to go to the meetings he went to. I had to be at meetings with him. I had to go down and see what he did on the job. I had to go play golf with him. I had to spend time with him. I had to see how he acted his family. I had to see how he treated little people, like waitresses and people, clerks in stores and stuff like that. People who couldn't talk. I had to find all that out because I didn't know. Selfish, self-centered people don't know about things like that. It's got to be shown. I call him in the middle of the night and I say things to him like, Norm, Norm. He said, what do you want, jackass? I said, Norm, my program ain't working. He said, try ours. Jesus, I mean, but he'd say things like, jackass, your program never did work. That's true. My program doesn't work, for Christ's sake. If my program worked, I wouldn't be wherever I'm at tonight. I'd be home watching TV or something. If my program worked, all I'd have to do is go look in the mirror and see how good my program is doing. My program. But your program doesn't work either. If your program worked, what the hell are you doing here? You know why I'm here? Because our program works. Our program works. Not singular. Our program works. That's why I come to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. My sponsor is a wise man. Very wise man. He was with me 22 years before he died. And every day of my life I'm grateful. And I went, the worst time I've had since I've been sober was the following year after that when I didn't have a sponsor, when I ran my own life. I can't run my own life. But that isn't even significant to me. I still have a sponsor today. I got a sponsor, a guy by the name of Clancy. Mean. People think he's cruel. No, he's pussycat compared to Norm Alpe. Norm Alpe was mean. I can say that. Really, Norm. Yeah. Norm told me I had to go to work. He said I was a bum. I told him, I'm not a bum. I'm an AA member. He says, you're an AA bum. Bums don't work. He said, get off of welfare. I said, I'm not on welfare, Norm. Never been on welfare. He said, what do you call living in penitentiary? Self-supporting through your own contributions? That answer for everything. Answer for everything. One night I was in a meeting with him one night. Some guy tapped me on the shoulder at the coffee break. You know, social gatherings always been around the coffee break. People get pissed off because they start the meeting and leave. I'm standing back there at the literature table, which is a bad place for an egotistical person to be. Some guy tapped me on the shoulder, Johnnie, I said, what do you want? He said, I heard you speak the other week. I said, you did? He said, yeah. He said, you know you're a miracle? I said, really? What brought that to you? What was it I said? You know how humble we are. I tell you, by the time that coffee break was over, I'm history for all intents and purposes. If I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, I'm so full of me, I just kind of float back to my seat and sit down there by where Karen's sitting and Norm was looking at me. I'm goofy because I'm trying to figure out where my spaceship is that's coming to get me. And on the way home that night, we're driving down the freeway, and I'm sitting there staring out the window. Norm said to me, what's the matter with you, jackass? You been smoking that stuff? I said, Norm, you don't understand this, but I'm a miracle. He didn't understand it. He slammed on the brakes, ran into the divider, and he said, you're what? I said, I'm a miracle. He said, where do you get this nonsense? I said, the guy told me here, Norm. He said, jackass, you ain't a miracle. Alcoholics Anonymous is a miracle. You're just a small part of it. Jesus. Could you imagine what an egotist like me would do if I really believed I was a miracle? I mean, you can let your imagination soar. I'd probably get some Greyhound buses to take us all back to Waco to do it right this time. I mean, I have that type of an ego. I'll tell you what that statement has done for me. It's kept me small enough to stay here. It's kept me small enough to take a commitment when it was asked. See, our secretary of the groups I go to don't even have to ask for people to take a commitment. If there's one open, they're mobbed. They have waiting lists for people to do jobs in their meetings. And just amazing. I tell you what, I've come to the conclusion is some of these people in Alcoholics Anonymous didn't put any more effort into their drinking than they do in Alcoholics Anonymous. They sure weren't much of a drinker. I mean, they probably only drank for an hour a week because that's about all the effort some people put into AA. Thank God I ain't like that. Thank God the people who went before me and the people who are in my life today are activists because they pulled me along when everything that's known to man could happen to a man since I've been sober. My wife committed suicide, raised my 2 children. I've been through business failures. I've had my heart broken a couple of times. I've been through a painful divorce. I have my children on drugs. But I never quit coming and sitting in meetings. And you never quit giving me things to do here. To say I'm grateful is such a small little thing to say. Everybody says they're grateful. People who talk about being grateful all the time are the first ones to kick over their chairs and run out as soon as the basket comes their way. Gratitude is something that you do. It's not something you say. The next time you go to a restaurant and have dinner, and the waitress comes around, stand up and shake her hand and tell her how thankful you were that she came around and served you a meal. And don't leave her any money. But don't go back and sit at her table tomorrow night and tell her how grateful you are that she's back there again. Gratitude is an action. It's something that you do. Something that you do. I was told a long, long time ago by an old lady who was dying, who I love very much, that I didn't know how to thank her for what she had done for me in Alcoholics Anonymous. And she said there was only one way in the world that I could ever express my gratitude in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and to remain a good example of what this program can do for me. I have already had, before I ever came up here tonight, what I came here for tonight, and what I come back 5, 6 times a week for, night after night after night. I sit here and listen to the 5th chapter. I sit here and listen to the 3rd chapter. I sit and watch those 3 people get their birthday cakes. I saw a newcomer stand up. I saw somebody get a little chip. I heard Francis talk. I heard every word of the 12 traditions. Every word. And while I'm doing that, I'm more interested in what those people were doing than I was myself. See, in those brief moments of my life, I'm as close to my God as I'm ever going to get. A man told me a long time ago that nature abhors a vacuum, but God abhors a vacuum even more under heaven and earth. He said, if you would empty yourself of self, you would be automatically full of God. I learned that here. I learned by sitting in here and watching you and being more interested in you than I am myself. Maybe for only a moment, I've escaped from me and I'm in contact with my God. I could stand here tonight and thank you for 1,000 things that's happened to me since I've been sober. I could thank you for the way I feel and for the way I'm going to feel, for the things that are mine, the things that aren't mine, the things that are going to come, because I'm sure as I'm standing here, the best day of my life hasn't even gotten here yet. But what I'd really like to do tonight is, I'd like to thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. But even more importantly than that to me, I'd like to thank Alcoholics Anonymous for my God. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.